Hi, this is Maxime Verbist. What if your life would have a meaning before your birth, and your entire life would be about to find that meaning? If you believe so, then you believe in destiny, and the tarot can help you to find your destiny. If you want to grasp what destiny is about, it's better to put yourself in the right mindset. Then take pen and paper and try to answer to the following questions. Ponder on them, and you may pause the video and even take several days to answer to them, because these are not easy questions. First of all, write down 3 moments in your life that have been life-changing for you. And what is about those moments? What do they have in common? I invite you to try to identify 3 persons that have been particularly influential in your life for good or bad. And one more time, try to figure out what do they have in common? Why do they cause so much of change in your life? You may also add to that list recurrent dreams that keep happening to you and leave you in the morning very deeply moved. Maybe there are songs, there are novels that keep following you through your life. One more time. What do they have in common? Take time to do that. And when you have the beginning of an answer, you may watch the rest of the video. Modern psychology knows nothing about destiny, even if that belief exists worldwide. Basically, the destiny is the feeling, the intuition, some people say the superstition, that beyond what we want and plan for our life, there is a force, being God, being your unconscious, being some demon or some guardian angel that keep pushing your life in one specific direction. And in the Greek antiquity, it was very simple to understand destiny, because the gods were constantly interfering with the human affairs. So, in one sense, the destiny was just the making of the gods through personal life. Nowadays, obviously, we cannot believe anymore in the presence of such beings. But we can say that our soul is controlling our destiny. And at the end, it just behaves like a good old Greek-style god would do towards your life. So let's take from its pedagogical stance, let's take that idea that destiny acts as if one ancient god would interfere and mess with your life. In the previous video, we have explained that the structure of the major arcana is fundamentally a structure of 3 lines and 7 columns. Those 7 columns correspond to what Alice Bailey calls the 7 rays. 7 dimensions of consciousness that we may understand like psychological force, but for the sake of pedagogy, we will imagine that there are 7 complementary gods that may act upon the destiny. Because having what Bailey calls a soul ray means that one of the rays will keep influencing your soul more particularly. And it is another way, a modern way, to say that there is one specific God that will keep nagging you and pushing you in one direction. In this video, we will present the 7 soul rays according to the name Alice Bailey gave to them, but also embodied in the figure of a god. After all, every arcana of the tarot is the embodiment of one dimension of the universal consciousness. Therefore, taking 3 arcana and transform them into one figure, it's very usual for tarot. The first ray, called Will give the warrior god. The second ray, Harmony, will give the gardener god. The third ray, Intelligence, will give the merchant god. The fourth ray, Harmony, will give the artist god. The fifth ray of Science will give the artisan god. The sixth ray, Devotion, will give the preacher god. And the seventh, Order, will give the diplomat. Now you have the name of the 7 rays, the nickname. You have their embodiment into a figure. Let's see how it works for each race. The first column of the tarot reveals that dimension Bailey calls the will. So just imagine what would be your life if it would be constantly facing the manipulation of the magician, the safeguarding of the justice, and the structural abuse of power of the devil. In such an environment, the only way to survive to all those display of power is to turn yourself into a warrior and face it. Get brave enough, physically, relationally, and intellectually, to face the many enemies that life will put in front of you. Obviously, the destiny of the warrior is not a picnic. It is full of hatred, violence, abuse of power of any sort. But the world needs warrior in every difficult situation. The second column of the tarot reveals that dimension Bailey calls wisdom. So just imagine what life looks like if it's constantly facing the intellectual curiosity of the high priestess, the deep need of the hermit for exploration and adventure, and the interest for the social structures of the tower. And if you can do so, you can grasp that with a destiny of a gardener, what life will push you to is to develop the capacity to integrate what's going on in your environment and to enter into a deep harmony with that environment. And if you have a destiny of a warrior, people usually will tend to appreciate you because you will look kind and poised, and they won't probably realize how hypersensitive you are to your environment and how much you will feel like running away or how lonely it may feel to have such a destiny. The third column of the tarot is related to that dimension Bailey calls intelligence. Imagine one moment what life looked like if it would be constantly influenced by the communication of the Empress, the entrepreneurship of the Wheel of Fortune, and the natural philosophy of the star. Such a life would be exposed to a constant flux of change, and as if nature, as if a God would push us constantly to exchange. And it is the destiny of the merchant. Constantly dealing with a flux of ideas, a flux of money, a flux of energy in an ever-changing world. So if you have a destiny of a merchant, from the outside, your life will seem to be restless because you are constantly forced by life to adapt to new situations. And people may see you as a highly energetic person. But sometimes they have no clue that the flip side of this destiny is a very deep sense of absurdity towards every change. And that action sometimes seems to be absolutely pointless. But the show must go on. The fourth column of the tarot reveals that dimension Bailey calls harmony. So imagine how life would be if it would be constantly influenced by the assertiveness of the Emperor, the self-control of the strength, and the sense of tragedy of the moon. In such a life seems to push us to constantly facing the opposites and the contradiction of life and finding our middle path. And the only person who can do that is the artist. So if you have a destiny of an artist, your job would be to deal with contradiction. And from outside, your life would be very puzzling because as you need to taste the fruits of good or bad, the highest and the lowest, to reconcile them, people will just know where to classify you, because most of people just have no clue on how paradoxical life is. But your job is to reconcile the paradoxes. The fifth column of the tarot reveals that dimension Bailey calls science. So imagine what life would be if you would be constantly facing the dogmatism of the Pope, the practical sense of observation of the hangman, and the logical and rational capacities of the sun. In such a life, existence will conspire you and force you to become an artisan, someone who masters completely the technicalities of life. So if you have a destiny of an artisan, you will be very good or feel compelled to master any technical aspect of life. And obviously, people will find you rigid and very formal. But they won't grasp that there is also a flip side in your destiny, which is a constant feeling that our capacity to think are all over the place, and people are just speaking nonsense most of the time. They don't know what they are talking about. They don't have any mastery of what they say or they pretend to be able to do. And you know, the sixth column of the Tarot reveals that dimension Bailey calls devotion. So just imagine a life conditioned by the many affective needs of the lover, the complete and scary commitment of the nameless, and the idealism of the judgment. In such a life, existence seems to conspire for us to find the degree of an intense emotional commitment, to become like a preacher. So if you have a destiny of a preacher, everything in your life would be very intense. And people will tend to believe that you are fanatical, hysterical. And they probably won't notice that sometimes the flip side of your destiny is that life will appear completely dark, and you will fall into the dark night of the soul, because high emotions are coming and going, and when they leave you with nothing but darkness. So is the destiny of the preacher: intensity and darkness. The seventh column of the Tarot reveals that dimension that Bailey calls the order. So just imagine how life would be if it would be constantly facing the need for social status of the Chariot, the need for moral excellency of Temperance, and the capacity to create high-ranking social rituals of the world. In such a life, existence would conspire you to put you in a situation where you have to put in order your external appearance, your behavior, and the way social rituals are organized. And the only way to do that is to become a diplomat. So if you have a destiny of diplomat, people will notice your manners, they will notice your capacity to interact with others in a way that will give space for everyone. They may find that you are a bit too proud or too formal, but what they won't realize is that at the very heart of your destiny, there is the perception that the social fabric could disintegrate at every moment. Chaos is there at any corner. And that is why you insist so much on order, because you see chaos. In one way, taking into consideration the idea of destiny is very unpleasant, because who wants some external force to force us in one certain direction? The very idea that life conspires to teach us a lesson is quite unpleasant. But if you think you've found what is your destiny about, and please take time to do so, because it's a very important matter. It's a lifelong dialogue that you will have to establish with the force of destiny. But if you feel that that dimension is influencing your life. You will start to interact with the tarot in another manner. You will start to speak with those figures of the deity, and maybe to have a more playful attitude towards life, because life is not predictable, and the only thing we can predict, if we have spot your destiny, is that something will force you to learn one specific lesson about life. But you don't know when it will happen. And you don't know if you will take the positive side or the negative side of it. And that's exactly what tarot is about. Teaching you how to deal skillfully with life and to learn what you have to learn. To accept your destiny because, well, there is no way to escape from it. You can delay your response to it. But through the window or through the door, the destiny will come to you. It's better to be ready for it.